Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm so excited to be here to talk to you just a little bit about OBI, about who we are, what we do, and how we partner with you all. I'd love to know here, first of all, do we have a lot of blood donors or do we have some non-blood donors here? So if you can raise your hand, are you a blood donor? Raise your hand if you're a blood donor. Okay, that seems like there's quite a few. Good. Okay, so let's preach into the choir a little bit. Do we have any people who've never donated blood before? Few of those too. Okay, great. Awesome. Well, hopefully we can convince everyone to come donate blood because it truly is such a life-saving gift. So like Kaylee said, I'm Emma Meyer. I have worked for the Oklahoma Blood Institute for 7 years. I'm a senior account manager here. So I have the privilege of working with some of our big hospitals like OU Health, along with a lot of our big businesses, and then being a part of some of our big events. Some of you may have heard we have a big Boots and Badges blood drive coming this Saturday down at Paycom Center. So if you want to come donate, we would love to see you this Saturday at Paycom Center. We'll be supporting our police and fire. But I love what I do. Mostly what I love is getting to meet patients and donors whose lives have been impacted by blood donation. Blood donation is one of those things you don't really think about a lot, or most people don't think about a lot until they need it. And then it becomes truly a life or death, often a life or death situation. And so we at OBI have the role of trying to make sure we always have the blood that we need and we're not facing any critical shortages, which we'll talk about in a little bit because sometimes we have those. So just a little background about who we are, if you don't know. Again, Oklahoma Blood Institute, we have been around, this is our 45th year. 45 years ago, we had a group of doctors in the Oklahoma City area who were realizing that a lot of the local hospitals were having to cancel blood drives cancel elective surgeries because there was no blood on the shelf. People don't realize even when you don't actually use blood, you need blood. Anytime an elective surgery is started, there has to be blood available in case something goes wrong. And so those elective surgeries were canceling, something we're actually seeing right now around the nation due to blood shortages. But then those forward-thinking individuals back in 1977, they started what is now the Oklahoma Blood Institute. We have grown immensely since then. We are now the 6th largest blood center in the United States. And we've also expanded. We're now in parts of Texas. We're also the Texas Blood Institute and Arkansas, the Arkansas Blood Institute. We provide blood for over 160 medical centers and hospitals in this region, and 100% of the blood that is given out down at OU Health here in Oklahoma City, it comes from OBI and from faithful Oklahoma donors such as yourselves. So we pride ourselves on being sustainable. We're able to take care of our local hospitals first, and then when we have extra, we're able to share that with blood centers that need it, which right now we're kind of experiencing that. Just some details about donating. We are regulated by the FDA. Most people don't really think about that, but actually blood is a pharmaceutical. And so, but we live in this really weird world where we are regulated by the FDA, but we're not pharmaceutical sales by any means. And so we have all of the rules that we have in place are given to us through FDA guidelines. We are not allowed to pay donors. We can give them incentives like t-shirts and maybe tickets to something, but we cannot pay them. So if you've seen some of those maybe plasma centers around the city, they can pay people. But their blood cannot go to patients in the hospital. It will be used for other things, often pharmaceutical, some sort of drugs, but it can't go to patients in the hospital. So some of those rules, you do have to be 16 years old to donate blood. If you're 16 or 17, you have to weigh 125 pounds. And if you're 18 or older, you need to weigh at least 110 pounds. You can donate whole blood every 56 days, plasma every 28 days, platelets. That says platelets every 56 days. That's not true. It's platelets are every 7 days, or automated red blood cells every 112 days. So that's just a little bit about eligibility. Okay. Before we get into a little bit about actually donating blood, I also wanted to let you know that we currently are, we need about 1,200 donors every single day in order to keep up with the needs of our local hospitals. So I did a little digging and I asked our hospital relations team how many units of blood OU Health, just the downtown Oklahoma City medical buildings, how many units of blood they used in 2021. And I would love if anyone would be willing to guess how many units of blood do you think OU Health Medical downtown used in 2021? can either put it in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and tell me. Let's see here.
I'm sure a lot.
Samantha, yes, you are correct. It is a lot. And the other, I can't quite look at the chat. Okay. Gabriel says 1,000 units. Kaylee said 8,000 units. Okay. Jolly said 50,000 units. You guys are, you have gotten into the range. So there you go. In 2021, red blood cells, OU Health used 20,559 red blood cell units and 6,893 platelets. So we're looking at what, about 27,000 units, and every single unit is a donor. So think about that 27,000 people donated blood just to keep up with OU Health downtown, which is just crazy to me. And so that doesn't include, of course, Mercy and Baptist and St. Anthony's and then St. Francis in Tulsa, or any of our other partner hospitals in Little Rock, Amarillo, any of our other big cities as well. So, and also looking at those numbers, I kind of rounded it up. So say 27,000 units. Since we need to collect 1,200 units of blood every day, that means out of our year, we spend about 23 days just collecting units of blood to help make sure OU Health has the blood that they need. So that's a big impact, but I love that partnership. And I think that just shows how many lives can be impacted by just one location. So anyway, getting on to, and if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat or interrupt me at any time. We'll have some questions at the end, but I don't want to go through everything too quickly and miss out on that. A little bit about donating blood, especially for those of you who haven't donated blood before, just what the donation day and process looks like. So when you come in to donate blood, we've got mobile blood drives and fixed sites that are doing blood drives every day. So when I say mobile blood drives, it's a blood drive that comes to you. So it may be at your place of employment, it might be at your church, it might be at the mall. Those are all what we call mobile drives. They make up about 70% of our collection operation. And then 30% comes from our fixed sites. So those would be our 901 donor center, or the donor center in Norman, or the one on Portland, or the one in Edmond. So those generally are our platelet donors. We do a lot of, we've started to do some platelet donations at our mobile drives, but generally those donors will go to our centers. Okay. Well, I'm trying to get back onto my PowerPoint. Okay. So when you come to that blood drive, first you're going to do your screening questions. So the screening questions are really kind of a mini physical. And so this is something that is a huge benefit to organizations, to businesses as well, in that we provide something back for them. It's not just us coming in and saying, we need your blood and we'll see you later. We're able to actually provide a bit of a health initiative here, because we're going to test iron. We're going to check blood pressure, pulse, temperature. I've had a number of stories throughout my years here at the Oklahoma Blood Institute, hearing from donors who come in to be screened and they have an irregular heartbeat, or their iron has been low like 3 times in a row, and they're able to go to a doctor and able to fix something that's going on their health side. So it's also a huge benefit to donors as well. So that screening process, again, that little mini physical, ask you questions about how you're feeling, talk about travel, make sure you haven't gone to any areas that are a malaria risk. And then once you get through screening, well, the screening is the mini physical, and then it's the actual blood donation. Now, this is always the part that makes everyone nervous, and I understand, but it gets over pretty quickly. Usually most people will finish the actual needle portion in less than 10 minutes. And that's usually the smallest part of your time donating blood. And then, of course, we have snacks. We always, to our high school students, tell them we have Gatorade in a can. And for some reason, that's a huge incentive. So if you're a big fan of Gatorade in a can or Nutter Butters, we always have those, along with lots of other good things to eat. So again, just talking about those health benefits to blood donors, we're checking pulse, iron, blood pressure, temperature check. And then we also do a number of tests on the blood post-donation. Cholesterol, you'll get that information. Blood typing isn't a test, but people are always wondering what their blood type is. So we can't tell you on the spot if you've never donated before, but within about 48 hours, you'll get an email with a link to your donor portal, and you'll be able to see your cholesterol results. It'll have your blood pressure there as well, which you already have known, your temperature, and then it will have sometimes occasionally other tests, A1C, we've done COVID antibody testing, those kind of go in and out, just sort of depending on the season and what we're able to get at our labs. Okay, so one of the things that we talk about is how one donation can save 3 lives. Does anyone want to guess why we would say that? Anyone want to take a shot? Why one donation will save 3 lives?
Probably because you don't use the full donation on one patient, so you're able to use it on multiple patients.
Okay, yeah, kind of. So you're on the right track. Basically, the reason we can give it to multiple patients is because we separate it out into different blood components. So this is going to be kind of your middle school biology review of blood. Keep in mind, I'm not a medical professional. I have marketing and administration. So, but this will just kind of give you, maybe bring back some, like I said, middle school memories. So one donation can save 3 lives because we break it up into the 4 main components of blood. The first being red blood cells. Those provide oxygen to our bodies, and the big user of those would be trauma victims. You know, if you're in a situation where you're losing a lot of blood, you're going to need those red blood cells back. They're also one of the big reasons that people also need red blood cells is childbirth. A lot of people don't really think about that. I have a good friend who lives in my neighborhood, and when I told her I worked at OBI, she was like, "Oh gosh, yeah, I used blood after I had a C-section. I lost a lot of blood, but they didn't think I needed any at the time, and I just felt so awful for a couple weeks following, but I thought it was just the tiredness of being a new mom." And she went back into her doctor, and she's like, "Oh no, your hemoglobin levels are really low." They gave her 1 unit of blood, and she said she just felt like she had life breathed back into her. So, you know, we often think of blood as like a life-saving gift, and it definitely is, especially in the case of trauma, but it's also a life improving gift, because she went from being so exhausted, and she said she was pale and just so weak and tired, and she just felt so much better. It was just such a gift to her. So those red blood cells are really important. And then plasma. Plasma is most often used for burn victims. Plasma is kind of when we're talking to younger kids, it's like the bus that carries the other parts of the blood, or the lazy river that carries the other parts of the blood around your body. And then platelets. There's a lot of platelets being needed, especially for cancer patients, but those platelets are what clots your blood. And then the last component is white blood cells, and white blood cells fight infection. We most often don't use those. The reason we say every 1 donation can save 3 lives is that typically those white blood cells are going to be separated out. We don't get rid of them because we don't want to waste anything. We're usually able to give them to some sort of research facility, but those white blood cells won't be used for patients typically. Every now and again, we get a different request, but not usually. Okay. So again, I mentioned earlier, we're governed by the FDA, so we're not able to pay donors, but we're always going to have incentives. And I'm sure most of you have seen that. So right now we've got our little blood donors keep rolling along. We have lots of really great partners here in Oklahoma. Science Museum, Oklahoma, Frontier City, Safari Joe's. We've also done things with the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum. Different places have given us, we've gone through the Oklahoma City Zoo, different tickets that we're able to share with our donors just as a gift to say thank you, because truly we could not exist without them. We run on volunteers, both volunteer donors, and then of course we have lots of volunteers helping to host blood drive and to make blood drives happen. Okay, I'm going to share this sweet little message. See that sweet baby right there? Thank you so much for your blood donation. Our sweet baby girl was born at 34 weeks and underwent a major heart surgery. Your blood saved her life. We are forever thankful for you. You have no idea how much it means to our family. You saved our baby girl. We are so grateful for your awesome decision. It doesn't go unnoticed. In the condition, this little girl had heart surgery and had to have a lot of labs done. So often babies use blood because when they take blood to test them for labs, they don't have a lot of blood in their body to begin with. And so they're going to need to replenish that blood. So this is one of our Thank the Donor messages. This is a really cool program that started a couple of years ago that we're working with various hospitals. And so what we do is we go in, we work with the nursing staff, and we're able to put one of these little green hearts on the bags of blood. And then we teach the nurses to how to share this Thank the Donor. Basically, the QR code that is on There's also a QR code on that little green heart. They can scan that and it takes them to like a little portal where they can actually write a thank the donor. They'll use the barcode from the actual bag of blood and the nurses can help them get that. And then that message is sent to us just to make sure nothing bad is in there, which I think we've had thousands and thousands of these messages. None of them have been bad, or if it has any personal information, we have to remove that due to HIPAA. But they can use pictures. So it'll go to us just to curate to make sure there's not any issues. And then we're able to forward that on to donors so that actual donors are able to get the thank you from their recipient. Previously, this was impossible just because of HIPAA laws. And often we will, finish up we will take the blood to our labs, we'll type it, we'll test it, we'll package it, we'll drop it off at the hospitals, and then that's kind of the end of it. Of course, there's a barcode that goes with it. So if we ever needed to track anything down, we would be able to, but we often don't have any sort of knowledge of where that blood goes to or who it goes to. But this Thank the Donor has kind of shifted that. And it's also given people an opportunity to say thank you when they don't know. I mean, they don't know who to even thank, but they're able to thank someone. This has been a really, really special, and I love to get these in my inbox. So keep your eye out for these. You might get one of these after one of your blood donations, which would be pretty awesome. Okay, I see I have a couple messages in the chat, so I'm just gonna check.
Well, and I will say while you check that,
Yeah.
my daughter had open heart surgery at 3 weeks old. And I think that Thank the Donor is absolutely awesome because, I mean, this was back in 2010 when none of this actually existed. But, it definitely, for a family who have received help and have received that aspect of it, I think it's awesome that they're able to thank the people that have made it possible.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that's my favorite part of the job. I'm so glad to hear about. And is your daughter okay now? Is she?
She's to a degree, yes. She still has to see cardiology every year, and she will need future surgeries, most likely due to just growth and different things. But overall, she's doing good. And she had 3 total surgeries as an infant. So all 3 of them required blood donations and just, being able to have great healthcare systems. So and that's what got me into healthcare, was going through all of that personally. So
yes, thank you so much for sharing that. I love to hear how those little things impacted you. So, okay, I saw you had a couple other questions. I can just answer these right now. Okay, what's the rule on Hep A?
Because it's a food one, and I know back when, quick backstory, I had hepatitis A back when San Diego had the epidemic of strawberries being infected with hepatitis A. But that was like when I was 7 years old. And so when I donated blood for the first time, there was a rule in place at that point that it had to be at a certain age. And so I didn't know if that still exists.
I know there's been a number of changes. And so I unfortunately can't answer that one specifically just because I'm not certain, but I do know that a number of those hepatitis rules have changed. It's interesting, a number of things, again, were governed by the FDA. In November of 2020, we had a whole bunch of our guidelines changed to make it easier for people to donate blood. That timed very well with the pandemic because people weren't donating blood as much. So I know that hepatitis, I have a coworker who had hepatitis. I think it's probably the same thing. So I would, you can call our number, or I'm happy to look into that and send Kaylee a response and she can forward it on. So we can check into that. Also asked about medical marijuana and what the rules are there. So we in our screening do not ask any questions about medical marijuana. Our staff is trained that if someone is incoherent or not able to function well at the moment, whether it be a drug or alcohol, they're not going to take their donation. But there is no question about it. So as long as they are coherent, it's not an issue. And then what would make someone pass out after donating blood? Okay, so there's a couple of different responses to this. Kind of the most common is actually more of a psychological thing that happens and doesn't make it any less real, but often people will, we run into this a lot in high schools where if one person passes out, they'll see someone else and be kind of like, oh, me too. But also if they get hot, if they haven't drank enough water, I mean, dehydration is kind of a huge one. If you haven't drank enough water, I mean, this time of year when it's 1,000,000 degrees out can definitely cause people to pass out because they get overheated. I mean, the same thing that would cause them to pass out because they're overheated, could make them pass out. So that's why after donating blood, we want them to sit in our snack area, drink some Gatorade, sit down for a little bit, and we want to make sure that they're okay before they try to leave. So yeah, dehydration is a really big one on that. And again, kind of that just psychological response as well. Okay, love the thank the donor, great. Oh, Kimberly said she got the thank the donor who helped my sister and it was an amazing gift. Oh, I love that. Thank you for telling that. Okay, Bria Clark, you asked, okay, when will blood from gay men be accepted? Inevitably, when I post about encouraging people to donate, a member of the LGBTQ community will say they would like to, but can't due to antiquated and discriminatory policy. Yes, thank you for asking that. That is still one that, again, it kind of lies in the FDA's hands. They did take the deferral time from 12 months to 3 months back in November of 2020, but I understand somebody currently still in a gay man in a same-sex marriage, committed marriage, they still are unable to donate. And I know that's not fair, but that's still on the backs of, or that's the FDA. So we just kind of have to wait that one out. I know there's a lot of lobbying and legislation going on with that, but that's kind of where we're at right now. So steps have been made, but it's still, there's still a ways to go. I know we hate that as well. I remember back when they gave gallon pins, I don't necessarily want the pin, but an email or letter that recognizes certain donation milestones would be much appreciated. Yes, I love that. I think that that's a great idea. And I will, after this, I'm going to write that down because we definitely want to recognize donors when they get to those different milestones, because those are huge. We appreciate that a lot. Okay. Oh, Bria asked, how can we help the cause? I'm assuming you're asking about your earlier question, and I don't know, but I will help. I will find out. I can find out more of what we can do to further push that legislation and that discussion. I'm not sure kind of where that lives right now. Okay. Dawn said, vasovagal syncope. Yes, that's the better term for it. I apologize. That would be the vasovagal syncope. Yes. Yeah, you're correct there. That's all. Okay, I think we were caught up for right now. Okay, so I'm going to talk about another little program that we have started here at the Blood Institute recently that I think is really, really cool. It's something that started just last September and has really taken root in blood centers across America. So it's called the Blood Emergency Readiness Corps, and it's basically a group of blood centers, I can read it here, across the nation who have committed to joining together to be prepared for mass transfusion disasters that may strike. These blood centers commit to collecting extra units on a rotating on-call schedule to create an available supply of blood for emergency needs. So this began out of an issue that came out of Austin. I think it was now 2 years ago. There was a shooting there. It kind of went under the radar. Not a lot of people, it didn't gain a lot of national news, a little bit, but not much, unfortunately, with the uptick in mass shootings. But at the time, the blood center that was taking care of those victims did not have enough blood. They put out a call. And previously, when things like this happen, whether it be from a man-made or natural disaster, when someone puts out a call for more blood, that they said, okay, we're short, we need 50 more units of O negative, they would get it. Well, the pandemic has changed everything, including the blood supply. And so because of that, they had asked for 50 units and they only got 35. And I believe 30 of them were from OBI. And so it's kind of scary that we live in a world where, it's not that people were unwilling to share, they were unable to share. And so since this BERC started, again, last September, I think we've got like 33 blood centers, and I think there's only in the 50s of blood centers. So most people are already getting on board. And basically every 3 weeks, we collect a few extra O negative and O positive units so that should the time come, we will be ready to ship those out. We did send some to Texas back in May. We sent some to Kentucky last fall when there was a shooting there. It's been, unfortunately, we've had to use it quite a few times. So while I don't like the reason for it, it's really good that we have something like this now. And just so you know, OBI this week is on call. So we're collecting, it's only 10 extra units, which again, when you think about our collections every day, that's really minimal. But since we've got 33 groups on here, that's about 100. Everyone's on a 3-week rotation. So that's about 100 units that are ready, standing ready to be used if needed. So I have a little video. We didn't test it, so we're going to see if this works. If it doesn't, then we'll just move on.
BBC television news now presents a special program on today's mass murder in the capital city. It's a hard fact of life, but bad things happen to good people. And when it comes to critical needs scenarios, like a natural disaster or mass shooting, blood is needed immediately. Unfortunately, in the world we live in now, most blood centers don't have enough blood on their shelves to handle these types of disasters and are forced to request help from other blood centers. But what if those neighbors don't have it to give? By creating the Blood Emergency Readiness Corps, blood will be ready and available if needed, without delays and uncertainty. As a member of BERC, your local blood center will collect extra units to create an available supply of blood for emergency needs. Help us be ready for whatever might come our way and commit to donating now. The Blood Emergency Readiness Corps. Prepared for tomorrow, today.
Okay, so that's just a little bit about BERC, and you might be seeing more on that going forward, but it's a great thing that's happening. I also just wanted to go back. I know somebody had mentioned about the vasovagal syncope, not a psychological, and I just wanted to correct myself there. Yes, that is when there's a drop in blood pressure or a decrease in heart rate, and that causes someone to pass out. So that's more often what it is just that drop in blood pressure, and so that's why we want to keep them if they get to that point, laying down, put their feet above their heart, and they're able to get that blood pressure and that heart rate back where it needs to be.
So with that being said, sorry, follow-up question on that then. So someone who normally would have low blood pressure, what do you recommend for them wanting to donate blood?
So it would have to be within the healthy range to donate. If it's too low, you wouldn't be able to donate. But then I would just say you're going to have to really take your time donating and not hurry the process at all. Make sure you tell someone when you get there that you generally have low blood pressure. And so you're probably going to want to you'll kind of talk through it with them. Make sure your doctor is okay with it as well. But you're probably going to want to lay down longer. Make sure you keep those, your feet elevated. Okay, there's a couple more chat. Let me just. Okay, Sandy asked about the restrictions. Restrictions being left from England has restriction for being in England in 1994 been lifted? Okay, yes, great question. So a number of those were also changed in 2020. And so now most of the England requirements, this is in regards to, I don't know the technical name, but it's mad cow disease, where for a while, if you lived in England or Scotland or various places in Europe during kind of the 80s, 90s, you were ineligible to donate because of that. And they have lifted a number of them. England, I am not certain of, and I'll have to check. I can send Kaylee the most up to date on those changes. But I know Germany is a big one where a lot of military folks have been stationed, and that has changed. So England is kind of depends on the years. So I can send that again. Make it my note. The mad cow updates.
Thank you. My husband was military, and we served. He served from 91 to 94.
Okay.
And we donated blood. He's O positive, I'm A positive, but we used to donate every 60 days through the military.
Yes.
And then when we got those restrictions, then they were like, nope, you can't donate anymore. And so
I know we're like, it's hard enough to get blood donors, and then you keep putting all these things on it. But I know it's meant to protect the blood supply, meant to protect donors. But yeah, I will check on that. I feel like that one is okay now, but I don't want to say that for certain. Again, I should have had all of the rules in front of me, but there are literally hundreds of pages of them. So we have it's called our SOPs, our standard operating procedures, and they are always changing. They're always having to be updated and reprinted because the guidelines are changing. So, but I'll check on that one for you.
Thank you so much.
As a donor, I was unable to donate because as a military family, we were stationed in Germany overseas. They did change those rules, and I am able to donate now. It changed in 2020. That was one of the guidelines that opened it up to me as well.
Yes. Yeah. So spread the word and tell people. We've been trying to get that information out. There's just so many things to share, but I know we've been focusing on at Tinker and at some of those places, making sure that they know that. But of course, there's all of these military families who are not civilians. And so, how do you reach out to them? It's kind of a challenge. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to check these other questions and then we can move on. Okay, Lindsay says her blood pressure runs on the lower side and never had an issue. Excellent. Sarah, thank you. Or Sarah said, thank you, or excellent information. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, Sarah. All right, let's move on to just a couple more things and then we can wrap it up so you guys can enjoy the rest of your day. Another way that people can get involved with the Oklahoma Blood Institute if you're not able to donate, which of course some people just can't donate for whatever reason, whether you still fall into those mad cow disease rules or whether, whatever, we've got also opportunities for volunteerism. Again, we run on volunteers, volunteer donors, and then volunteers helping to make sure the blood drives happen. So the purpose of volunteer services is to cultivate the relationships with which we will provide volunteer support for the life-saving work of the Oklahoma Blood Institute. Volunteers are people of all ages, backgrounds, and experiences who are willing to donate their time and expertise and skill set. So we've got everything from, like this gentleman is holding the tubes. We need someone to wrap tubes. It's just manual labor. And we've got people who make calls to donors. You may have been on the receiving end of some of those calls. And then we've got people to help at blood drives, welcoming them as they enter, helping them sign in, replenishing stock, snacks, things like that. So there's kind of a little bit of something for everyone. So if that's something you're interested in, our director of volunteer Sunday has her name right here, or you can shoot me an email and I'll help get you connected as well. It's also a great thing for high school students to do. They can get some volunteer hours that way, especially if they're unable to donate blood, they can still be a part of the mission. Okay, and then just one more sweet little thank the donor message I wanted to share with you. Hello, just wanted to reach out and say thank you. Our 5-year-old daughter is having her 4th heart surgery and your blood donation was given to her. We are forever appreciative. So those are just, again, those are the reasons why we do what we do and why this mission exists. So I will check if there's any other questions. Sandy said hydrate extra on day of donation. It helps keep your blood pressure up. Great. Yes, and be sure to eat a nutritious meal before donating. Absolutely, always important. That's another common thing people will say, oh, do we need to fast beforehand? No, opposite of that. Eat a really good meal and drink lots of water. It's not a fasting blood draw kind of thing. Are there any other questions? Thank you guys for all the questions you had so far.
Just a question about future donations for those who have heart conditions. Typically, is that something based off of their physician's recommendation to donate?
Probably physician. I'm trying to think through what some of the questions are. I think I would definitely check with your doctor anytime. If you're when in doubt, check with your doctor. But I do think that medication can sometimes be a deferral. And so the reason that medication is a deferral, not usually because of anything that's in it that would like taint your blood, but it's because of why you're taking it. So if someone with a heart issue is on blood thinners, they're not going to be able to donate. Like that's a forever and always, if you're on blood thinners, no go.
And if they're not on blood thinners though, then
so I would say talk to your doctor, probably.
Okay.
Bria said, appreciate the OBI notifying me for extremely low iron levels. I went to my doctor and have since been treated for anemia. I should be able to donate this fall. Thank you for sharing that. That is so great. We had a story kind of early on in my career at OBI where there was a gentleman at Boeing who was donating and he was like super fit. He worked out all the time. He ate really healthy. So just not an issue. He came to donate blood and the phlebotomist noticed that he had kind of an irregular pulse. And so he's like, I really think you need to see the doctor. And he wasn't able to donate. And he was just kind of mad about it. So he's like, are you kidding me? I can't donate. I'm super healthy anyway. Well, I guess he finally ended up going into the doctor and he ended up needing a like heart bypass surgery or something crazy. And because they had caught something in one of his arteries. And it was just, he truly attributed that phlebotomist for saving his life. And so, they had a chance to meet and it was very sweet and very cool. But it was, again, kind of one of those opportunities where, yes, we are the patient to donor lifeline. We're making sure patients have the blood they need, but we're also taking care of people who are donating to make sure that they have the health. So, yes.
I'm a primary care provider and, basically, like I get patients that they say they want to get cleared for blood donation all the time. And typically we don't clear them if their hypertension's not controlled, diabetes, and if they have a psychotic disorder or if they have kidney disorder. Those are the top 4 that we don't clear them for. And
Oh,
typically
interesting.
it's because they're not controlled and or they're on some pretty interesting medication to help with that. Because they can't always filter that stuff out. Or I was an old ICU nurse before, so I'm trauma nurse, so I'm used to giving lots of blood products. And so
Yeah.
sometimes they won't do them simply because of that. So, but yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that information, Cindy. That's really good to know. I do know one question we often get to will be about diabetes, and you can donate if it's under control, but I mean, it sounds like if it's not under control, you're not able to donate. Okay, Victoria asked, are there preferred blood types for donation, or does it vary by different components of the blood? Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, well, O negative we're always going to love our O negative RBC donors. O negative is the universal donor, and then O positive is the most commonly used in the hospital. O negative is a little more rare. Only 7% of the population has O negative, but O negative is going to be used in cases of emergencies when we don't have time to type somebody's blood. That's what we're going to use then. And so that's always important. And does it vary by component? Yes, because AB positive, I believe, is the universal plasma donor. So if you're AB positive, we're probably going to try to recruit you to donate plasma if we can get it, especially because AB positive is not a very common blood type to transfuse, because just a quick thing, you can never put something into someone's blood that they don't already have. So the reason O negative is universal is it basically has nothing in it. It's O and it's negative. Now you've got an A antigen and a B antigen, and if those are in it, you can't give someone who has an A blood B blood. And so someone with an AB positive means they have all of it in there. So the only person that an AB positive person can really help is an AB positive person. And I think it's like 2% of the population. So that would be someone who we would want for plasma, but probably not for whole blood. So that kind of explains that. But anytime we have a negative donor, we're always a fan of negative. We're a fan of everyone. So no matter what your blood type, we love you, come donate. But negative donors are usually recruited more heavily. Kaylee just said, I'm an A negative and get emails and notifications frequently. Yes, you do. Okay, Margaret asked, how long does blood last when frozen? Okay, great question. You can't freeze red blood cells. Red blood cells have to stay moving, so you actually have to keep shaking them. So if you ever are able to go to a blood bank at a hospital, I'm not sure why you'd get to go, but if you get to go, that would be great. You'll see that the red blood cells are actually on a constantly little moving shelf, and they last for 42 days. Plasma, however, can be flash frozen, and then that will last for a year. And platelets, those lucrative little guys, are they are only good for 5 days. So they go by really quickly, but they're used really quickly because they're often used for cancer patients. So lucrative is not the right word. What is it? They go very quickly. So that's why you can donate platelets every 7 days, and they replenish pretty quickly, but they're only good for 5 days on the shelf. Okay, Kelly said, I'm a lucky baby's blood donor. It is an honor to donate. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Make sure I didn't miss any questions here. Oh, the youngest age to donate, you have to be 16 with a permission slip. 17 and older, you can donate without a permission slip. Some high schools do require 17-year-olds to also have a permission slip, but through the FDA, we do not require. And then I think, did I miss any? I think that's all of them. Yeah, so again, you can donate every 56 days if it's just a regular donation, what we call a whole blood donation. If you do automation, which is when you're hooked up to a machine, and when you're hooked up to the machine, it's actually going to take your blood out, go into a little centrifuge in the machine, separate it out, and then put parts of the blood back into your body along with a saline solution. So if you're able to do that, that often will take you out for 112 days, twice as long. But when you do that process, you can donate a number of different products. So you can donate, well, you would just donate more of different products, I should say. So you can donate what's called a 2 RBC, which is 2 units of red blood cell. And then they're going to put a saline solution back into your body. So it's not like you're taking 2 pints of blood out. You're actually going to end up equal when all is said and done, but they'll have taken 2 units of red. And then, or you can donate just platelets, which is where again, this takes usually about 2 hours, which is why we typically do it in our centers. Our platelet donuts are usually pretty committed, and they'll come in about every week or every couple of weeks. And that's where they're, again, going to take the blood out, separate out the platelets, and then put the rest of the blood back in, but they can get more of those platelets. When you donate a whole blood, just like a regular donation, just the bag, what you're used to, that's whole blood. That's all the parts of the blood. but it's only a very small portion is platelets. And so they only get like, I want to say I heard one time it's like 1/8 of a platelet transfusion in a whole blood. So that's why platelets are so great, because they're basically taking 8 times as much out and able to give those to patients, rather than having to take platelets from a whole bunch of different donors to put together to create enough for a patient. So, okay, Lindsay did want to remind everyone you can log into your blood and plasma, or you can log your blood and plasma donation once a quarter for 200 points in your Live Well OU portal. Yay, thank you so much. And you can find blood drives near you at obi.org, or I'm sure that you see emails from Lindsay and Kaylee about blood drives coming up at your locations. So if anyone doesn't have, if there are no other questions, I want to thank you guys so much for taking some time out of your day to learn a little bit more about blood donation. I've got some questions that I will follow up with Kaylee to make sure she can send back to you all, make sure you have those answers.